Good morning, good afternoon to all of our attendees for our Untangle webinar. Today we're going to be talking about DIY reports in our NG Firewall product. My name is Steve Young and I'll be your host today. Today we have Eric Newvine, who's our pre-sales engineer. He's from our pre-sales team and he'll be walking you through how to make your own reports within our NG Firewall product. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you don't hear any sound, please use the audio panel to select your preferences. If you're dialing in, please use the dial-in number and the access code. We will be taking questions. We have a bunch of lovely staff people here who will be answering questions throughout the webinar. So use the question panel and submit your questions and we'll get to you very shortly. A Q&A will also be held at the end. So please keep asking questions throughout the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric.
Thanks, Steve. So reports. The Untangle Firewall, NG Firewall, has already built-in, pre-populated 400 plus reports. There's 32 different categories across 24 different applications. A quick breakdown of what those reports kind of look like, the kinds of reporting data and formats that are available. There are 284 charts, 110 event lists, 30 summaries, and you also have the ability to customize or create your own reports within the system. A couple of quick things about the reports before we actually dive into actually creating them. Custom reports can be exported from one instance of Untangle NG Firewall and imported into another. So if you create a report on one device, you really like it, you like the data that it's presenting, you like the format that it's in, you can quickly and easily export that report into another Untangle without having to have to recreate it again from the beginning. The export option is there, and the import option is there. Our report data can be exported either individually or as a whole. And now by report data, what I'm talking about is the actual database values that are being used to populate a given report. This is different than what we were just talking about, where you're actually exporting or importing the reports themselves. Think of the reports themselves as more of a template, whereas report data is the information that fills that template in. Any given report, like I said, can be exported. If it's a chart, there is a download image button right here. And if it is a events style text-based report, you can export it as a CSV file. In both cases, these files will be automatically downloaded to the computer that you're using to access the admin UI of your NG Firewall. A couple of things to keep in mind when we're talking about exporting data. It's not as big a deal for charts because it's just a single file that you're downloading. It's just an image. But when you're downloading event reporting data, that CSV file can be rather large. The NG Firewall itself is limited to showing no more than 50,000 lines of matching data for a given report and conditions that you've selected. However, there may actually be significantly more than that for the time range that you've selected for the report. When you export, it's going to export all of it. So be aware of that when you do hit that export button on an event style report. That file can get really large really quick. In addition to the individual export options for reports, you also have the ability to do a bulk download backup of your report data and send it directly to a Google Drive folder. This gives you the ability to keep data for longer than what you may be able to do with just what's available for space on your hard drive, so that you can then go back and access it quickly and easily in the event of a situation occurring, or if you need that reporting data for whatever purposes. Once you've exported that data, you can then very quickly and easily re-import it back into your NG Firewall to then run a report against it to see what you need to see within that data. So there's two basic methods for creating a custom report in Untangle NG Firewall. The first and easiest is customizing an existing report and then saving it as a new one. Essentially what this is doing is it's taking a pre-populated report and giving you the ability to add conditions like you would do in the reports view, but in this case, saving it as its own report so you don't have to go back in and re-add those conditions every time you want to see that specific data set. Again, this is by far the simplest method for doing this, and generally speaking, this is what we recommend when we get these phone calls into our support team or the pre-sales team, where a customer is looking for a specific type of report or specific information in a report. Because in the majority of cases, the reports that are already there cover most bases most of the time. So then it's just a matter of filtering it down to showing you the specific data that you need to see. The second way to create a report is to actually create one from the ground up as a brand new report. This is significantly more work intensive. Essentially what you're doing is you are building a SQL query in the UI to generate a report for you. When we do the demo, I'll show you how to do both of these, and you'll see that very quickly that there's actually quite a bit more involved with creating a report from scratch as opposed to just modifying an existing one, which is, again, the main reason why we recommend going with option one instead of creating one from scratch. Some things to keep in mind when you do decide to start creating custom reports. First thing first, try to keep it as simple as possible. The less that you have to put into that report as far as conditions and criteria are concerned, the easier it will be when you discover that it doesn't work the way you expected it to be troubleshot. If you have a dozen different conditions in there and you have to try to figure out which one is either causing the report to break or is causing the data set to not be the result you're looking for, it's much more difficult to go back and try to comb through all of those different conditions. So when you're creating a report, its best practice is to try to keep as few conditions as possible when you're starting out. And then as you have built that report and you want to fine tune it more, after you've saved it that first time, then you can quickly and easily go back and start adding those other conditions to fine tune it. As I've already mentioned, SQL queries are used to generate our reports. It's a bit of a deep dive. There's a lot going on in there. So don't dive in head first. Don't expect that you have to know how to do all of that, all that there is to do with SQL to create a report in the Untangle. We try to keep it simple as we can for our users so that they don't have to know and understand SQL databases to be able to get the information they want. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't or can't do that if you're comfortable doing it. It's absolutely possible and it's encouraged. But, the biggest thing to take from this is you don't have to know SQL to get a report to do what you want it to do. Which brings us to the next thing, use your tools. There's extensive documentation in our wiki, as well as knowledge base articles that we've built to help you with creating reports. If you're not sure on how something works, either check that documentation or reach out and ask us. Any time of the day, you've got our support team available, willing, wanting to help. If you have a question about creating a report or customizing a report, ask. That's why we're here. And the last thing that I wanted to point out is don't give up. This is not easy. It is definitely something that is not necessarily even something that everybody wants to do. It's not something that you need to do in our system. We do provide our own pre-populated reports, but in the event that you have something that you're looking for specifically, give it time, be patient. It may take more than one try to get what you're looking for, but chances are good that with trial and error and with the tools you have available, you will get what you're looking for. And with that, let's jump into a demonstration of how creating reports works. So I have an Untangle setup with a device behind it passing traffic through it. The first thing that I'm going to show you is how to customize an already existing report and save it as a new one. I am going to go into Web Filter, and we're going to look at the top sites report by request. Now, let's say, for example, that this user that we're looking at behind this Untangle is somebody who is managing all of your social networking infrastructure. So you don't necessarily care that they're going to Reddit all the time because that's where you're posting a bunch of your content. Don't know why you would necessarily use Reddit, but we'll use that as our example. So what you can do is if you go into settings here, you can add a condition to the report instead of adding it up here as a condition. What this lets you do is save that condition as part of the report for future reference, so you don't have to come in and add that condition globally every time you want to see the data. So to exclude Reddit from this report, let's change the name to excluding Reddit. Because when you're creating a new report, you do have to give it a unique name. And let's change it from 10 slices in the pie chart to 25. 25 is the maximum that we can show. Now I'm going to go into the SQL conditions. And because I want to exclude hosts from the view, and there's several of them with Reddit in it, and I don't want to see any of them. So what we do is we'd add host as the condition, click add. And this is where a little bit of understanding and knowledge about how SQL works comes in handy. Because I want to match multiple conditions and I want to exclude them, I'm going to change the operator from equal to not like. And what that lets me do is it lets me give a value that will match multiple entries in the report with a single condition. So the wildcard for the like operator is a %, and then I'm just going to type Reddit and then put another % at the end. And then that way it'll match Reddit, Reddit Inc., Reddit Gifts, all of those other sub-host names that are part of Reddit. Now, at this point, I can save the report or I can preview it to make sure that it's doing what I want it to do. I'm going to hit preview. And you'll see that this changed. And now it's showing 25 pie slices instead of 10. And there's no instances of Reddit showing in that report anywhere. Now at this point, if this is exactly what I'm looking for, I can hit create new, and that will save the report. And since this is doing what I want it to do, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now I have a new report called Top Sites Excluding Reddit, and it's listed right here in the main list of reports, just like the other ones that are pre-populated. So now if I want to see this report again in the future, I can just come into the list and click on it instead of having to add that condition every time up here. Okay, so like I said, that was the easy one. You also have the ability to create a report from scratch. And this one's a bit more involved. I'm going to hit add, create new. Now, there is nothing here. It's completely blank. I have already gone through and found all of the information that I need to create the report that I want in either other reports or in our wiki knowledge base content to know what I need to build this report. So it's going to look a lot simpler than it really is. So first you have to give it a name. So I'm going to do a bandwidth control report showing top application usage, but only in the streaming media category of application control. So we'll do top app usage in streaming media. The category is the category of report. So I'm going to choose bandwidth control. Give it a description. App usage in streaming media. And I want this to be a pie chart. So I'm going to change the report type to pie graph. And then you get all of these fields. And this is where it can start to get overwhelming. A lot of this information you're going to have to go search for, to be perfectly honest. A lot of it you can find by just looking at other reports that already exist. Or, as I said, you can go into our wiki. It's all documented in there. You can find what you're looking for. So for this particular report, I know I need to use application underscore control underscore application. And what that's going to do is it's going to group the pie slices by the application control application name. Pie sum column. I cheated on this, I'm not going to lie. I took this directly from another report because the math can get complicated very quickly. And I know that this particular value for this field will work. So I have round coalesce sum. Now, to give you just a quick overview of what this is doing, this formula is going to take the sum of the values that I give it. It is then going to apply a coalesce command to it. Basically, it's going to aggregate that information, and then it's going to round it off to the nearest whole number. So a lot of this is syntax and formatting. Because this is a bandwidth control report, I'm mostly concerned about the actual amount of data being used by these apps. So I am going to be focusing primarily on two values, source to client bytes and client to source bytes. Then to finish out the syntax, comma 0, parentheses, and then I have to do some math to get the numbers to actually be something useful for me when I'm looking at it. 1024 times 1024, comma 1. And like I said, you don't necessarily have to worry about all these other things that I'm adding in here until you're actually creating a report from scratch. It's all documented. Everything's there showing you exactly what you need and why it needs to be there. So now that I've got my formula in place for determining the values of the pie slices, I then select the column that I want to order by, and I'm going to do value. I'm going to change it to sort by ascending. So it's going to show the largest pie slices first. And for the graph style, let's do something different. I want to see a 3D pie graph. Again, I'm going to bump this up to 25 slices. I want the units to be in megabytes. Series renderer you can change. I'm going to leave it as none. I'm not going to change the color. And then you give it a display order. Because I have a general idea of where I want this to show up in the bandwidth control list, I'm going to put in 602. That's literally just used for determining where to place it in the list of categories on the left-hand side. It's arbitrary. You can change that to whatever you want. It can be any whole number, and it should work just fine. So now that I've built the template for the actual pie graph itself, I still have to tell it in SQL what to pull for information. And this is where this section at the bottom comes in. So again, because this is bandwidth control, I know that I need to use the session minutes table. And to get the specific information that I'm looking for, I need the application control category.
Hey, Eric, just checking in here. Your sound has suddenly cut off.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just unmuted and remuted, and now it's, or excuse me, reverse that. Muted and remuted, and it's fine. I don't know why I was showing as muted on my screen. Sorry, where did it cut off? I'll go back and finish that again.
You probably want to do the last maybe minute or so.
Okay. So let's go back in. So what I was doing for the SQL conditions, because this is a bandwidth control report, I know I need to use the session minutes data table. Again, that is pulled directly from the wiki. You can easily get that information very quickly. We have the entire database schema available in the wiki for you to see exactly what is used in which type of reports. And because I am looking specifically at application control category, I know that I need to add the condition from the list, application control category. Once I add that, I type in streaming media for the value, hit preview to show it. If I like it, I can hit save. A couple of other things to point out while I'm in here. This is the same screen where you make changes to a report you've created. Just use the update button after you make the changes, or delete a report you've created. One thing about the delete button, this is only available on custom reports. The ones that we have pre-populated should not show a delete button. Okay, so now that we've got these reports created, I'm gonna hit cancel. There's a couple of other things about customizing reports in the command center in the Untangle that is useful when we're talking about things like the command center, or when we're doing things with additional boxes, above and beyond just a single deployment. You have the ability to do what are called email templates or report summaries. Not only can you create those summary emails using existing reports, but you can also include any custom reports in there as well. So if we go into apps and hit reports and hit email templates, if we add a new template, it is of course going to default to the daily report. I'm going to just clear these out so that I can quickly show you. Let's go to bandwidth control. Right there, top app usage and streaming media. That app is now, or that report is now available for you to email to other people. This is also something that with Command Center, if you are pushing policy configurations between devices, you can push report configs between devices. So if you have a report on a device that you want to put onto other devices, you not only can import or export on the device itself, but you can go into Command Center, create a template, and push it to all of your other devices quickly and easily. The last thing that I wanted to talk about quickly, when we're talking about these email template, for these report email templates, there's some really useful things that you can do with these. There are a bunch of other platforms out there that have reports built in. And maybe you like the reports that you were getting from another device, and you want to get something similar to that in your NG firewall. A very common use case of this, and we actually have an article for it in our knowledge base, is an executive summary. This template was something that one of our customers who was coming from another platform was looking for in the NG firewall. They really liked it. They were a partner. Their customers all loved it and wanted to have something in their NG firewall that was similar to it. So what we did is we went through our reports, customized some of them, identified other ones that were already built that were part of that summary that they had shared with us. And then we created a report summary for them. What we then did was we downloaded or exported that file and made it available in our knowledge base so that they could quickly and easily download it and import it into their own Untangle. But this is the sort of thing that you can do when you're creating custom reports. You can mimic or create things that maybe you're used to seeing in other systems in the NG firewall. And in this case, we've already done the legwork for you. It's just a matter of downloading it. But it also gives you a great example of seeing how all this ties back together and how it becomes very useful for you and your end users. Okay. So do we have any questions that I can help with at this point?
Yeah, we've had a bunch of questions, but we've got them all answered. So it sounds
Okay.
like people are good. So thank you, Eric, for a great webinar as always. And if anyone else has any questions, we'll stay on for a few more minutes. Go ahead and submit those. But if nothing else, thank you all for coming to our webinar today, and enjoy the rest of the holidays in December, and we'll see you next month. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your holidays. Have a good rest of your day.